Have you ever been sitting alone at night, the room completely quiet, nothing moving around you, and suddenly you get this strange feeling like someone is watching you? Your heart beats a little faster. You start looking around the room, maybe checking the door or the window, even though deep down you know no one is actually there. Almost everyone has experienced this moment at some point, and for a long time people explained it with superstition or imagination. But the truth is actually much more fascinating, because this feeling is not random at all. It is the result of a powerful survival system built deep inside the human brain. Welcome to my channel, Dark Within, where we explore the hidden psychology and mysteries of the human mind. And if you enjoy learning about strange things the brain does, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because there are many more mind-bending topics coming. Now here is where things get interesting. For most of human history, our ancestors lived in extremely dangerous environments. Thousands of years ago, humans were not living in safe houses with locks and lights like today. They lived in forests, caves, and open lands where predators and enemies could appear at any moment. Because of that, the human brain evolved to become incredibly sensitive to danger. In fact, the brain develops systems that constantly scan the environment, even when we think we are relaxed. One of the most important parts of this system is a small structure in the brain called the amygdala. Neuroscientists describe the amygdala as the brain's alarm center. Its job is to detect threats and trigger fear responses very quickly. What is fascinating is that the amygdala can react to potential danger before your conscious mind even understands what is happening. In other words, your brain sometimes reacts first and thinks later. That is why you can suddenly feel uneasy or watched without any clear reason. Another concept psychologists talk about is something called hypervigilance. This means the brain becomes extra alert and sensitive to small signals in the environment. For our ancestors, this ability was incredibly important. A tiny sound in the bushes could mean a predator nearby, and noticing that sound quickly could literally mean the difference between life and death. Even though modern life is much safer, the brain still carries this ancient survival wiring. When you are alone, especially in quiet or dark environments, your brain naturally becomes more alert, because historically, those were the moments when humans were most vulnerable. Darkness in particular plays a big role here. When the lights are low or the environment is dark, your brain receives less visual information about what is around you. When that happens, the brain begins to rely more on prediction and imagination to fill the gaps. Sometimes it guesses correctly, but sometimes it creates the feeling that something might be there, even when nothing actually is. Scientists have also discovered that humans are extremely sensitive to eye contact and gaze detection. Our brains are actually wired to quickly notice when someone is looking at us. This ability helped early humans understand social signals and detect possible threats from others. Because of that, the brain sometimes activates this being watched sensation, even when there is no real observer. Another interesting reason behind this feeling is something called pattern recognition. The human brain is constantly trying to find patterns and meaning in the world around us. It looks for shapes, faces, movements, and signals everywhere. This is usually very helpful, but sometimes the brain makes mistakes. For example, shadows in a dark room might look like a person for a second, or a random shape might briefly resemble a face. When that happens, the brain instantly reacts because it assumes there might be something important there. There is also another scientific idea called predictive processing. This basically means your brain is always trying to predict what might happen next based on your past experiences. If you have watched horror movies, listened to creepy stories, or had a scary moment before while being alone, your brain may remember those experiences and activate the same emotional response again in similar situations. Even small things like silence, a creaking sound, or a sudden movement in your peripheral vision can trigger the brain's alert system. And here is something really important to understand about the human brain. It is designed to prioritize survival over accuracy. That means your brain would rather assume there is danger when there is none than ignore a real threat. Scientists call this a false positive response. In simple words, your brain sometimes chooses to be wrong in order to keep you safe. When you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, this actually makes perfect sense. Missing a real threat could be deadly, but mistakenly thinking there might be danger usually has no serious consequences. Research also shows that when people are alone, the brain often becomes more focused on internal thoughts and subtle environmental signals. Without distractions like conversations, phones, or background noise, you become more aware of small sounds and sensations. That increased awareness can sometimes amplify normal things like your heartbeat, a small noise in the house, or the movement of air in the room. Suddenly, those small details feel much bigger and more mysterious than they really are. Stress and fatigue can make this feeling even stronger. When the brain is tired or under pressure, it becomes more reactive and sensitive. Hormones like cortisol and adrenaline increase alertness, which means the brain becomes quicker to interpret normal signals as possible threats. But here's the fascinating part. This strange feeling that someone might be watching you is not a weakness of the mind. It is actually proof that your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. For millions of years, this system helped humans survive in unpredictable and dangerous environments. Even though the modern world is very different, that ancient protection system is still active inside us. The next time you experience that moment when you feel watched while being alone, remember that it is not something supernatural, and it is not your imagination running wild. It is your brain activating one of the oldest survival mechanisms in human history. In a strange way, it is actually a reminder of how powerful and protective the human mind really is. And if you enjoy exploring mysteries like this and learning the hidden psychology behind everyday human experiences, make sure you subscribe to Dark Within, because in the next videos we are going to dive even deeper into the dark, fascinating secrets of the human mind.